Hey, what's going on, guys? Kitsune TCG here, back with another video. I, got another deck list from a regional, managed to finish second. I was really kind of happy overall. Took Swordsoul again. I had intended to play a super heavy samurai build, but the super heavy samurai scales just didn't show up on time in the mail, so I wasn't able to play that. Hopefully I'll get to kind of, take that out this next weekend, but just kind of decided to run it back with Sword Soul, and, hey, we ended up finishing second. I was really happy with the list overall. This is obviously the first regional in the Cyberstorm Access kind of regional season, so I thought I would just kind of quickly go over the list. It's fairly similar to the last one I did. It was like no new cards out of Cyberstorm. I didn't have a chance to pick up some of them. Obviously, there are a few that really work well with the deck, but I wouldn't say they're ultimately super necessary. So 3 Ecclesia, I did bump it up from 2 to 3 because this build is more, not focused on going second, but it is more adaptable to going second. So I think this format has kind of played out in a way where you're not really worried about, if you run into Kashtira, them zone locking you, and a lot of the other top decks outside of Super Heavy Samurai. I don't think you're putting up the most unbeatable board as long as you have a few kind of board breakers, which this deck is able to play and, draw into pretty consistently. So 3 Mogi, 3 Long One, 2 Taya. I don't think that's going to ever change unless they get hit on a ban list. That's pretty much the ratios outside of maybe bumping Ecclesia from 3 down to 2 that you're going to pretty consistently play. We've got the 3 Emergence, the 1 Sacred Summit, and the 1 Blackout. Again, similar kind of thing, obviously Emergence is just going to get you anyone that you don't have. Sacred Summit definitely comes up a few times where, maybe I used Taya, went into something, grabbed this, had dumped the Mogi, revived the Mogi. You can just really kind of easily push for game, plus set up a little bit better board depending on like what you're going against. And then the Blackout's just obviously a really great, 2-for-1. 3 Vishudu, 3 Ashuna, and still 2 Adhara, and then the 1 Strihana. I don't think I ever want to bump Adhara back up to 3. This is a 41 card build, so you're already kind of, I'd say, at the max number of cards you want to play, and I'm not sure what I would cut to make a 3rd Adhara. The Strihana, this can be any of the other level 4 Tenyis. I did have a situation where I would have preferred it not being the water one, so I could have, shuffled 2 away with Baxia. Still ultimately didn't end up mattering too much, but it definitely could have if my opponent had realized the attack difference with Draco Berserk. So in that instance, would have preferred to, as any other one, the, pop effect with the monster for Shriana didn't come up at all, I don't remember. So, I think this could just be anything else just to make sure that you kind of guarantee the 2 shuffle away with Baxia. 2 Heavenly Dragon Circle. Obviously, this is going to be something that you want to play. I think at some point maybe you considered cutting it, but now in such a, kind of hand trap heavy format, we're seeing like Ogres, we're seeing, Veiler, you're seeing Imperm still, and then, just obviously trading with Blackout. This card's really good, so don't think you want to ever cut this. I don't think you want to ever move it to 3, though, because I don't think that, you see it as often as you need it. So I think 2 is perfectly fine there. It's kind of like what our going second engine. We are playing 3 Dark Ruler. This is obviously in here for Super Heavy Samurai, provided they have not set up, Spell Cancer, which they can do. So I have to kind of be careful about that. You are playing some hand traps, so that can be something you want to make sure that you block them from going into if you need be. But, this kind of does deal with most every other deck. Obviously, Pearly Noir is going to be unaffected, but, you can pretty easily get their materials out from underneath them. And I think this has a pretty good Pearly match up overall. At least from my testing, it's been not the hardest, I'd say, matchup for this deck. 2 Desires, this is going to obviously be something you'd max out on if you could. If it goes back to 3 on the next list, you'll definitely play the third one. I drew this a lot more than I did the last time I played Swordsoul, so it felt great, just being able to get free draws. Most people didn't want to Ash it, which I understand. It's a very high risk that your opponent you might already have everything you need, or you have something else that you'd rather Ash. But every time I activated it, I was drawing into whatever I needed, so it didn't matter if then they Ashed maybe my emergence or whatnot. So it's just kind of like a 50-50 at that point. But obviously Desires is great. I was playing Thrust in the main. You have so many normal spells in this deck, whether or not you're grabbing Dark Ruler, you're grabbing your Blackout, turn 1, maybe you're grabbing Emergence, Pot of Desires, Talent. Overall, this deck just has so many normal spells and traps that I think that it was okay to play the Thrust in main, and especially with so many hand traps, it definitely came up more times than it didn't. Finishing off with 3 Ash, this is obviously still the best generically good hand trap. It stops, it just can end Branded's turn. You can hit I'd say some key pieces in Super Heavy Samurai. Obviously, you're not going to hit the main engine just because it can churn out monsters so quickly, but in instances, you can just maybe force out a negate. If you're just trying to prevent them from grabbing, maybe the the King Regulus. Maybe you can drop the Ash. Might draw out the Baron. And that's just one less thing for you to deal with. So Ash is obviously just going to have a lot of really great targets. And then 3 Imperm. Another kind of one that has a lot of really good targets in this format currently. So I definitely think that it's worth playing at 3 overall. Kind of just quickly going on to the extra deck. Like I said, I didn't have any of the new cards, so you're not going to see anything like the Chaos Angel or anything like that. It is still just the 1 Yazi, the 2 Baxia. We've got the 2 Chi-Jiao, 1 Draco Berserker, still the Dragite. I think the Dragite is still pretty good at a lot of spell trap matchups. This deck doesn't have the most interaction with spells and traps, so you definitely want to make sure that you have a few things for him. And I think Dragite definitely comes up more times than I think most people will realize. 1 Chao Fang, obviously this does get a lot better if you add a Ringo Worm into the deck, just because you can get that out there, and then you can even use Yazi plus it to go into Chao Fang, so you can lock out on Dark, which being able to lock out Dark is going to hurt a lot more decks. So it just kind of gives you the versatility, being able to either use Baxia or Yazi to do that. The Quick Singalong Yoon, definitely I think this was probably the number 1 card to end on against Pearly. Just being able to make sure that they're not going to get any value out of their continuous spell, plus being able to just take away whatever they're Exceed summoning into. A lot of instances, this would be the one they were having to get rid of with Santa Claus instead of, something else, just because this would prevent them from even being able to go for a Zeus line. So I definitely liked ending on this overall. Qingying, this obviously just ends games, and it does have a pretty relevant effect against several decks. The Ice Jade Gamir, this would be definitely the one that I would cut for one of the new 10-star synchros. I'm not sure which one I would put in, probably the Dispatter, but definitely would take this out at this point. I don't think it's going to have too much more staying power now that Cashier is probably going to get a hit, and we probably won't see it too much more. The 1 Baron, 2 Monk, don't really think that you need 3 currently, and then the 1 Shaman. I definitely had this come up a few times to reduce some reviving, so definitely enjoyed having that in the deck still. And then just moving on to the side deck. This is probably where the most changes occurred, just because obviously with a new decks in the format, you definitely want to have some different cards. 3 Droll. This, came in. I decided it against Super Heavy Samurai. That was my only loss, was against them. Just didn't see it. They're obviously just able to, go about their full combo at that point. Really unfortunate, but obviously it happens. But where I did draw it, it just basically ended those games. I was able to kind of just usually follow up and finish off the mat any game at that point, because this deck obviously can pretty easily OTK. The 3 Godarla, I have seen several people kind of like siding in or maining in the Kaiju field spell, so definitely want to move away from using what is the turtle's name? Anyway, yeah, that one has a negate on it, so definitely don't want to give them the ability to utilize that. So Godarla is definitely the next best one. Plus, you have several cards in this deck that you can make very easily that can beat over 2700, so definitely the best one to play at that point. The 2 Lightning Storm, Heavy Duster, and Evenly. This was obviously for, primarily a Labyrinth matchup, which I did have, but obviously can come in against, several other decks. Liked it overall. Obviously, these are not the best cards against a few matchups, but, still pretty nice to have overall. And then Dimensional Barrier. This was kind of just there for Pirelli, branded. Those are probably the 2 biggest that I had. Obviously, Super Heavy Samurai is mainly more focused on, some synchro plays, but they can kind of do a lot without that, just going into kind of link plays. So definitely really only just kind of bringing this in for 2 decks. But yeah, overall, I was very happy with how the deck played out. I was a little bit surprised with how well it ended up, but Swordsoul is definitely going to be I think, pretty strong deck this format. Seems like, again, definitely going to be some more consistent decks, but it doesn't seem like the power level is anything too crazy this format. So, yeah, I was really happy with just how things turned out overall. But let me know down below what y'all think, what you're playing this format, and just what you're looking forward to. And, let me know when you think we'll get a ban list, and I will see y'all next time. Thank you.